Welcome back. Part two of this lecture on better photography for better communications in agriculture is going to focus on knowing your phone's feature. We're going to talk a little bit about the lens. We're going to talk about quick access to the camera, focus and exposure adjustment, and high dynamic range photography. So let's get started. First of all, we don't think about it very much, but this is the lens of your camera. And one of the challenges is it is extremely easy for it to get dirty, and that will significantly limit the quality of your photograph. So keep it clean. Pay attention to that. A microfiber cloth is a good way to clean those lenses and not scratch the surface. Second, smartphones will nearly always have a way to quickly access the camera. On my LG phone, if I bring up the phone, even on the screen where before I even use the pin to get in, I have my phone icon is at the bottom right, and I can swipe it up, and I can take a picture without even unlocking my phone. And each one of the methods to do this on phones is different for each one, but it would be good for you to familiarize yourself with your particular phone's features so that you can quickly access the camera. So now we're going to talk about focus and exposure adjustment, and I really love to do this class in person because this is a feature that people have never found on their phone. At least about 9 times out of 10, most people do not know about this feature, and it is one of the most cool features on your smartphone. This happens to be an iPhone screenshot, but it works similarly on almost every phone I've ever had, and I'm not even an iPhone user. But when you want to adjust the focus and the exposure, frame your picture and then press and hold or touch the screen until this golden triangle, which is what most phones use, they put a golden square or rectangle appears on the screen, and then there's oftentimes like a sun or a yellow dot or some indication of a circle or something to the right or in that region. Now, wherever you put this square is going to be the point of focus. The purpose of the golden dot is once you have decided on your point of focus, put your finger on the dot and slide it up and down, and it will make the image lighter or darker. It's very helpful when you've got something very, very bright in the screen that really isn't supposed to be. The camera will try to tone down bright things in the image, like snow. But snow needs to be white and bright, and so oftentimes pictures of snow come out to be pretty gray and not very pleasing. In this case, you can select your point of focus and then brighten up the image so that snow looks white. Another really neat feature on phones is the ability to do simple high dynamic range or HDR photography. And on some phones, and maybe even almost all phones now, the default setting for taking pictures is an HDR setting. So what is HDR? Well, HDR, high dynamic range, is trying to get the camera to do, or the sensor to do, what your eye does normally. The camera or film or sensors cannot detect in the same image the same number of dynamic range or the same amount of dynamic range as your eye. Take a look at the photograph on the left, which is straight out of my smartphone of the Jessamine County Courthouse on a beautiful day. Again, early morning light, so you got the contrast and sharp contrast between the building and the sky, but you totally don't know what is going on here in the shadows in the front because the camera has adjusted for the brightness of the building. Now with HDR photography, and back when it was manual, you'd have to take 3 or 4 pictures or 5 of that scene and expose for the front part of the image and the midtones and the brightest part, and then you'd have to merge them together. The smartphone does this automatically and without having any kind of adjustments from you. So again, I'm standing at the same place. Actually, I came back a little further because I wanted to get the limestone stairs in this image to the right. But you can now tell that you've got that stairway and that walk, the steps coming up to the courthouse, more details in the lawn in front of the courthouse, and more details in the leaves on the trees to the right. So, in my opinion, a much more balanced, more pleasing photograph. So, as phones are getting, the cameras and phones are getting better and better, there are more and more features. I now own a phone that has two lenses, a wide angle lens and I would say a more normal focal length lens. Phones have improved in their low light performance immensely, in particular iPhones over the last, I'd say 5 or 6 generations. And one interesting one is the option to photograph in RAW mode. Now, almost all cell phones, their native format is JPEG, and it's a camera processed image. The RAW image is all of the digital information that was captured by the sensor. And I'll show you why it might be good to capture the RAW image and then process it. This is a camera JPEG of a scene here in central Kentucky. Beautiful sky, but you can tell that the camera exposed for the bright sky, and we lost all the details in the horses in front. But when I took my RAW image and I brightened the shadows and left the sky alone, all of a sudden, I've got a much more pleasing image, and now you got beautiful horses in the foreground. And all I did was to adjust the shadows so that they were brighter. And since an image in a digital camera is nothing but electronic information, you can very precisely change the tone of a photograph. And it is what your eye saw, because my eye did not see this, it saw this. But your eye can adjust between the low light here on the horses and the bright light in the sky, and the camera cannot. So